Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 We're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 8, entitled Manifestation of Brahma from Vishnu, Text 22. It's November 30th, 2025. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 8, Text 22. We'll start with the Sanskrit words responsively. Kalena,
Kalena,
Sa,
Da,
Aja,
Aja,
Purusha Ayusha,
Marusha, Ayusha,
Abhipravrita,
Abhipravrita,
Yogena,
Yogena,
Virudha,
Virudha,
Bodha,
Bodha,
Svayam,
Svayam,
Tat Anta Ridaye,
Tad Antaridaye,
Avabatam,
Avabatam,
Apashyata,
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 Yat,
Yat,
Na,
Na,
Purvam,
Purvam,
Kalena Soja, Pusha Yushabi,
Kalena Soja, Purosha, Yosavi,
Pravrita Yogena Virudha Bodha,
Pravrita Yogena, Viruda Bodha,
Swayam Tadantaridaye Vabatam,
Ayam Tarantar Hidaye Vapatam,
Apashyata Pashyatayana Purvam.
Apashyata Pashyata Yana Purvam,
Kalena Soja Pusha Yushabi,
Kalena Soja, Purosha, Shabi,
Pravrita Yogena Virudha Bodha.
Pravrita Yogena, Viruda Bodha,
Jayam Tadantaridaye Vabatam.
Ayam Tarantar Hidaye Vapatam,
Apashyata Pashyatayana Purvam.
Apashyata Pashyata Yana Purvam,
Kalena Soja Pusha Yushabi.
Kalena Soja, Purusha, Yushabi,
Pravita Yogena Virudha Bodha.
Parita Yogena Vriduda Bodha,
Swayam Tadantaridaye Vabatam.
Jayam Tadantar Hidaye Babotam,
Apashyata Pashyatayana Purvam.
Apashyata Pashyata Yana Purvam, Kalyena Soja, Purusha, Yushabi,
Kalena Soja Pusha Yushabi.
Pavrita Yogena Vriruda Bodha,
Pravita Yogena Virudha Bodha.
Swayam Tadantar Hirdaye Rabatam,
Swayam Tadantaridaye Vabatam.
Apashyata Pashyata Yana Purvam,
Apashyata Pashyatayana Purvam.
Kalena socha purusha yushapi.
Kalena saja purusha yushapi.
Pravritta yogena viruta bodha.
Pravrita yogena viruda bodha.
Swayam tadanta ridayeva patam.
Svayam tadantaridayeva patam.
Apashyata pashyata yana purvam.
Apashyata pashyata yanupurvam. Kalena soja purusha yushapi.
Kalena socha purusha yushapi.
Pravrita yogena viruda bodha.
Pravritta yogena viruda bodha.
Svayam tadantaridayeva patam.
Smayam tadanta ridayeva patam.
Papashyata pashyata yanapurvam.
Apashyata pashyata yana purvam.
Hare Krishna. We're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 8, entitled Manifestation of Brahma from Vishnu, Text 22. We'll study the word meanings responsively. Kalena,
Kalena,
in due course of time.
in due course of time.
Sa,
Sa,
he,
he,
Aja,
Aja,
the self-born,
the self-born,
Brahma.
Brahma.
Purusha Ayusha,
Purusha Yusha,
by the duration of his age.
by the duration of his age.
Abhipravrita,
Arbi Pravita,
being engaged.
being engaged.
Yogena,
Yogena,
in meditation.
in meditation.
Virudha,
Virudha,
developed.
develop.
Bodha,
Bodha,
intelligence.
intelligence.
Svayam,
Svayam,
automatically.
automatically.
Tat anta ridaye,
Tadanta Hirdare,
in the heart.
in the heart.
Avabatam,
Avabatam,
manifested.
manifested.
Apashyata,
Apashyata,
saw.
saw.
Apashyata,
Apashyata,
did see.
did see.
Yat,
Yat,
which.
which.
Na,
Na,
not.
not.
Purvam,
Purvam,
before.
before.
Translation. At the end of Brahma's 100 years, when his meditation was complete, he developed the required knowledge, and as a result, he could see in his heart the Supreme within himself, whom he could not see before with the greatest endeavor. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Supreme Lord can be experienced only through the process of devotional service, and not by one's personal endeavor and mental speculation. The age of Brahma is calculated in terms of divya years, which are distinct from the solar years of human beings. The divya years are calculated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, text 17, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Arhayad Brahmano Vidu. Brahma's one day is equal to 1,000 times the aggregate of the 4 yugas, calculated to be 4,300,000 years. On that basis, Brahma meditated. Hare Krishna, Bhaktidevan, welcome. On that basis, Brahma meditated for 100 years before he could understand the supreme cause of all causes. And then he wrote the Brahma Samhita, which is approved and recognized by Lord Chaitanya, and in which he sings Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. One has to wait for the mercy of the Lord before one can either render service unto him or know him as he is. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 8, Text 22. Kalena soja pusha yushabi pravita yogena viruda bodha swayam tadantar ridayeva bhatam apashyata pashyata yana purvam. At the end of Brahma's 100 years, when his meditation was complete, he developed the required knowledge, and as a result, he could see in his heart the Supreme within himself, whom he could not see before with the greatest endeavor. Hare Krishna. And so we're here online with Stefan, Anandini, and Paramatma, George and Danielle, Valerie, Rosa, Dharma Bhavana, and Parampara. And here in person, we're here with Bhakti Devin. And yes, this is Srimad Bhagavatam 3.8.22. Hare Krishna. So, as we mentioned yesterday, so this is a story of the creation, Brahma being manifest, not born in a conventional sense, being manifest from the lotus flowers sprouting from the navel of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. There's various explanations of and descriptions of creation in the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a major one, these chapters, this discussion between Maitreya and Vidura. In the second canto, there's one, and it's similar, but has some differences in terms of like the time. Here Brahma's meditating for 100 years of his own. There in the second canto, he's meditating for 1,000 years with the demigods. So it's because there's different descriptions related to different kalpas and different eons and epochs of time. There's the Padma Kalpa, the Brahma Kalpa. It gets kind of complex. Here in the purport, Srila Prabhupada describes what is a day for Brahma. It essentially comes to 8,600,000 years. That's approximate, but the exact figures are given in the Bhagavatam. And so if you multiply that times 316, times that by 100, it comes to 311 trillion, 40 billion years. That's a lifetime of Brahma. And so this is Vedic cosmology and cosmography. And so, as we mentioned yesterday, so Vedic, there's the Bhagavatam is called the Bhagavat Purana. Purana means a history. Itihasa or Purana, these are histories. And so it's like it's a different approach than, let's say, in our, the way we learned history in school or college or like that. So like not everything's chronological, because the purpose, the essence is to that these speakers, the great saints and sages who are speaking, Shukadev Goswami, Sutta Goswami, Maitreya, Krishna, they're taking different highlights from history with the purpose of describing them in a way to enhance our enthusiasm for self-realization. So the purpose isn't primarily to like, okay, this happened, then that happened, and then in 1846, and then like that. So the purpose is to enhance our bhakti, our inspiration to live for the highest purposes of human life. I'm reminded here in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13. In chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes really 19 elements that are the essence of the process of knowledge. And he starts, for example, the first one is humility, and then pridelessness, and acceptance of a bona fide spiritual master, and like that. So we can say, like, substitutions like, this is knowledge. We say, well, knowledge is memorizing the elements of the periodic table. I remember when I was growing up, the periodic table had 108 elements. I'm sure it's expanded by now as they're discovering more elements in the subatomic particles and that sort of thing. But then, not knowledge is the laws of physics are like this. And then, so what knowledge is will depend on our goal for knowledge. It will depend on our goal. So Krishna is describing like humility, pridelessness, and tolerance. Oh, this is not, because if our goal is liberation from material miseries, then these are the realizations, the processes, the qualities, and the activities that are going to support that goal. Later in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, Krishna gives, sometimes it's called the soliloquy of the demon. Things like Ishvaro Ham, Aham Bhogi, Siddhoham, Balavan Sukhi. I am the controller. I am the master. I'm the enjoyer. I'm perfect, powerful, happy, and and I shall kill my enemy, and just like that. So if our goal is to increase our material experience or illusion of me, the most important person in creation, me as the controller and the enjoyer, okay, then other things are going to be defined as knowledge to take us towards that goal. So, um, so Brahma, we've been discussing Brahma for a while here in this chapter, manifestation of Brahma from Vishnu. He's a special personality, and just like, of course, this goes back trillions of years, but just like Arjuna and Bhagavad Gita, special personality. This is history, and at the same time, it's like the Battle of Kurukshetra. It's history, and at the same time, we can understand it metaphorically, not that like, oh, it's just a metaphor. It didn't really happen. No, this really happened, and we can understand. Oh, what's my personal Battle of Kurukshetra? Arjuna's dilemma. It's like to fight the battle or to be spiritual, putting in quotes, and I'll go to the forest. I'll go to the forest and like that. And then as Arjuna got self-realization and God realization, he realized that for him to actually be spiritual would mean to pick up his bow and fight. So we can all look at what's my personal battle of Kurukshetra? Where am I trying to run away from my responsibilities because they're difficult, they're challenging, like that? And okay, of course, for some, in some circumstances, higher purpose means putting down the bow. We can cite, for example, the story, this is described in the Puranas and also in the 25th chapter of the Madhya Lila of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Narada Muni, he's walking along in the forest, and he sees animals who are not dead, but they're writhing in pain. They're being tortured. Terrible. And then, okay, at some point, he sees the hunter, this very degraded-looking fellow who, who's half killing the animals. And so Narada Muni says, "Well, what are you doing? Yeah, what are you doing here? What's happening? Why are you doing this?" And the hunter, as barbaric and vicious as he is, he's getting pleasure from torturing animals and see them writhe in pain. At the same time, somehow, he had some childlike innocence and sincerity. And he said, "Well, what's the problem?" And so Narada Muni's like, well, if you, okay, if you want to kill the animals to eat them, that's your livelihood, and you get their skins and like that. Okay, but at least kill them to minimize the pain. Don't give them extra pain. And then the hunter was like, well, but this is what my dad taught me. This is what my dad taught me. We can maybe imagine a scene. He's like growing up, and maybe he's 6 years old, 8 years old. He's a teenager, and his dad's taking him to the forest, and the dad's getting pleasure by half killing the animals. I said, well, yeah, so this kind of like, this is what I learned, it's what my dad taught me. And so, okay. this is going to be, but so he had some innocence there. He had some innocence, and he had a natural awe and reverence and respect for this saintly person, Narada Muni. And so by the association of Narada Muni, the hunter was transformed. Now, and there was some process, because Narada Muni says, look, put down your bow, put down your bow. And then the hunter, he's like, well, because he was transformed. He became a gentle soul quickly through the association of Sri Narada Muni. But then he was like, well, but practically, like, I've got a wife, and this is how I support myself. And Narada Muni asked him to trust. He asked him to trust. And we won't go through all of the chapters of that pastime. But what we can imagine that hunter, Mrigari, we can imagine he went through some dadi process. We can imagine he went through some process of trust and detachment. And so, as it turns out, he followed Narada Muni's guidance. He accepted him as a spiritual master, just as Arjuna at some point in Bhagavad Gita accepted Krishna as his spiritual authority. Karpanya dosha patasvabhava pichamitvam dharma samuda cheta yatreyasyan nischita puitanme shishasteham sarimam tvam prapanam. At some point, Arjuna says, now I'm confused about my duty, and I'm lost. I've lost my composure. I've lost my composure due to weakness, and now in this condition, I ask you, please guide me. Tell me what's best. Now I'm a soul surrendered unto you. I'm your disciple. Shishasteham sarimam tvam prapanam. Please instruct me. Okay, and then so Mrigari the hunter underwent an amazing transformation. And then a little while later, a few months, years, whatever. So as it turns out, so he put down his bow and he became a soft-hearted devotee of God, a soft-hearted devotee of God. And that's Brahma's process here. Brahma is already a devotee of Krishna, but he was confused. He wasn't clear on his service. So he's going into deep meditation for a really long time. Deep meditation on God in the heart. The whole second canto, second chapter is entitled The Lord in the Heart. Super soul. In our coaching program, we have so many methods and skills and principles, and often we emphasize that they're all meant to support ourselves and others to connect with the highest guidance within. The meaning of that is God in the heart, sitting right next to us in the region of the heart, a full expansion of Sri Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So for Mrigari, the hunter, his service, his coming to self-realization and Krishna consciousness was put down your bow. And for Arjuna, when he got self-realization and Krishna consciousness, his service was pick up your bow, fight fiercely. Fight fiercely. So the service externally can take infinite number of forms. And the principle here, whether it's Arjuna, Mrigari, ourselves, or Brahman, this part of the Bhagavatam, is to be sincere, to get clear on our service, on who we are, our identity, like who am I and what's the purpose of my life? Who am I and what's the purpose of my life? It's described in the Bhagavatam, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayat Yashuvairagyam Gyanam Chayada Hetukam. That by engaging in devotional service to God, Krishna, Vasudeva means the son of Vasudeva, and that's Krishna. Then knowledge and detachment from material desires come automatically. And we can experience that. We're engaged in devotional service, hearing and chanting the names of Krishna, the names of God, studying Srimad Bhagavatam, engaging in our service, whether in our family, our career, with God in the center. Right? If God's not in the center, then it's either vikarma or karma. It becomes actually karma yoga when Krishna, when God is in the center. Then it becomes karma yoga. Otherwise, it can be karma or vikarma. Vikarma means vicious karma. If it's not even sattvic, and we're just degrading ourselves and others even further and further. And and then karma yoga in its perfection, then that becomes akarma. That becomes completely transcendental, free from karma. And so we engage in devotional service and we experience, some detachment from the miseries of material desires, from the prison house of attachment to matter, whether it's gross matter, gross sense enjoyment, or subtle enjoyment, attachment to profit, adoration, distinction. There's a quote by a writer named Thomas Wolfe, and he says, "You have reached the pinnacle of success as soon as you've become uninterested in money, compliments, and popularity." Thomas Wolfe. You reach the pinnacle of success as soon as you've become uninterested in money, compliments, and popularity. From my point of view, it's another way of saying what the Vedas say. Subtle forms of sex desire, profit, adoration, and distinction. Now, that doesn't mean that when we're serving God purely, it doesn't mean that we won't accept money. It doesn't mean that if compliments, adoration, distinction, popularity come our way, that we won't accept them. At the same time, we don't make them the goal of life. Let me increase my honor and let me smash those who are trying to dishonor and insult me. Actually, just yesterday, I'm in correspondence with someone who, well, many of you know from the Safatov community, and he's very dedicated follower of Srila Prabhupada, dedicated practitioner of Bhakti Yoga, and he and he's going through a lot. He's being attacked from different from different sides, like quite severely, and I'll even say his family, it's quite, from my perception, it's quite nasty and ugly what's happening. And he wrote to me, he was like, wow, there's this whole kind of like whirlwind and hurricane going on these past few months. And he said, like, it's a great chance for me to practice what's happening in Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita chapter 14, that sometimes there's honor, sometimes there's dishonor, compliments, insults, and to continue with enthusiasm to do my devotional service. So that's the attitude of a devotee. And so both are true. We engage in what's called love of God, the activities that at least move us toward love of God. And we might be thinking, I'm not feeling much love of Krishna or God, but I'll suggest Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sajika Bunoy Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Karye Hudai. Love of Krishna, bhakti, prema is eternally situated in the hearts of all living entities, even those who we have the worst negative judgments about. It's situated in their hearts too. And it's awakened through this process of hearing and chanting. And this series of verses is especially about the process of remembering God. And so that's how our natural blissful love of God is awakened. So even if, like, okay, here we are on a Sunday, there's other things we could be doing. And here we are, hearing and discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. So maybe we're not feeling the ecstasy of pure, unconditional love of Krishna or whatever, but it shows like that that spark of love which is in the heart when we're chanting japa, discussing about Krishna, engaging in our offering the bhoga. It's like it's some manifestation of a spark of that love that's situated within the heart. So that can be an encouraging and true perspective. And so yeah, so we serve, and then from the service, naturally we get realization of who we are as not the body, a spirit, soul, and we get detachment from matter, and simultaneously, it's part of our attempts at bhakti. It's part of our attempts at bhakti to cultivate the qualities of sattva, to cultivate knowledge, not like a jnani. The idea of jnani is like I'll collect knowledge, like a karmi might. I'll collect expensive cars or I'll collect money in the bank account. But it's like, yeah, let me cultivate knowledge in the spirit to enhance my devotion to God. And we cultivate non-attachment. We go like, okay, let me work on reducing my attachment to eating, sleeping, adoration, distinction. It comes automatically by serving Krishna, and part of our service is to cultivate that. There's a text in the second canto of Bhagavatam, Tasmat Sarvena, Tasmat Bharatas Sarvatma Bhagavanishvaro Hari Shrutavya Kititavyas Cha. And Smartavyas Chichata Bhayam, which says that if we want to free ourselves from the miseries of material existence, then the recommendation is absorb ourselves in hearing, chanting, and remembering the personality of Godhead. This was right at the beginning of Shukadev Goswami speaking Bhagavatam. O descendant of Bharat, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries. So Brahma is absorbed in that remembrance. And Srila Prabhupada, he says in the final text of the purport we're reading today, that's 3.8.22, one has to wait for the mercy of the Lord before one can either render service unto him or know him as he is. So Brahma is meditating with austerity, right? We've heard the story from the description of history from the second canto of Bhagavatam. Brahma goes deep into meditation, and then he hears two syllables, ta, pa, ta, pa, ta, pa, and tapa. And like, so the meaning is austerity. Tapa also means heat, just like we heat something up and then there's potency there. And then Brahma's getting the realization. This is such an amazing description. As a result of his meditation and austerity for a long time, he could see in his heart the supreme within himself, whom he could not see before with the greatest endeavor. So this is what these great sages, Bhagavatam, what they're giving as the ultimate goal of life for all living entities, and particularly for spiritual beings having a human experience, to be fully connected constantly with the Lord in the heart, and to be moving towards self-realization, to not be lost to ourselves, and to engage in full devotional service unto the Supreme Lord. So as far as mercy, yeah, right? So like there's work like everything depends on me, and pray like everything depends on God, on Krishna, simultaneously. sometimes we can hear like, oh, I'll do that service, whether it's washing the dishes or cleaning the floor or chanting some rounds of japa. I'll do that service when I get the mercy. Yeah, no, it's great. And then because in that way you can see how surrendered I am. It's not up to me. I'm just a surrendered soul. So when Krishna gives me the mercy, then I'll study Bhagavatam, and then I'll do that project, that devotional project. When I get the mercy, till then, I'm going to lie in bed and watch TV because I'm a surrendered soul. I'm waiting for the mercy. I'm waiting for, we've experienced that mentality. So, okay. So well, I mean, a truth of validity there is that, yeah, we're all ultimately helpless and dependent, and at the same time, a few things. Well, one, we get to invite Krishna's grace. We get to invite God's grace. Because it's a personal relationship by showing this is what I want. This has been a theme for the past few days in our talks. That Krishna is a super soul in the heart. Sarvasya Chamriti Sannivisto, and he reciprocates with our desire. And so by showing with our sincerity and our actions, I want to see you. I'm reminded of the George Harrison song, My Sweet Lord. I really want to know you. I really want to see you. So how much do we really want to know God, the Supreme Controller? How much do we really want to see God, serve God? I want to serve you. Prabhupada emphasizes in this part of Bhagavatam, Bhakti Mam Avijanati Avinyash Tasmi Tatvata Tatumam Tatvato Gyatva Vishate Tadanantaram. Krishna says one can only know the Supreme Personality of Godhead by devotional service, just like even to know another human being by gaining their love and trust. Then they reveal themselves to us. If I'm trying to force you to reveal yourself, naturally you're not going to want to be vulnerable. If you feel forced, I have some other agenda. So when we apply that strategy for knowing to God, that's called bhakti. That's called bhakti. So, yeah. So Brahma goes deep into a bhakti meditation and he gets realization. And so he's showing like, I really want the mercy to be clear on my service. Also, sometimes we emphasize like chanting the names of God in any language, whether like when Jesus was asked what's the most important text from the Ivrit literatures, Hebrew literatures, he said it's the Shema, the Vahafta, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Adonai, our Father in heaven, Elohim, the most elevated. Well, these are names of God. And so to chant like Hare Krishna, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is especially recommended. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And it's for different reasons. It's an especially recommended mantra composed of the names of God. And the spirit of chanting Hare Krishna, it's a prayer. My dear Lord Krishna, please engage me in your service. It's a prayer, and simultaneously it's the answer to a prayer. Because it's described, there's like 9 categories of devotional service. And the 2 foundational ways to serve are chanting and hearing the names of Krishna. So it's a prayer, and simultaneously it's the answer to the prayer. So yeah. So the service that we get from our spiritual guide, Srila Prabhupada, that is the mercy. That is the mercy. I'll do the service when I get the mercy. Well, the service is the mercy. It is the grace. Srila Prabhupada will sometimes, give the analogy of like material miseries. It's like drowning in an ocean. If we're drowning in the middle of the ocean, and then so like it's a hopeless situation, even if we pride ourselves on being a great swimmer or something like that. But then, okay, then the ship comes along. A ship comes along, and Prabhupada emphasizes like everything's there. The ship, the Vedas, and the Maha Mantra, and Krishna, and the pure devotee spiritual master, and like, okay, we're giving you the lifeline, the whole parampara. We're giving you the lifeline. And then Prabhupada says, it's your responsibility to grab the lifeline. No one's going to do that for you. That's free will. No one's going to do that for you. So grabbing the lifeline means there's all this mercy in the form of so much service. Prabhupada gives us a program. We get to be engaged like up to 24 hours per day, 365 days per year, according to how sincere we are and how surrendered we are. And then, and to embrace the service, then that's the mercy. And then naturally we grow in self-realization, and the reward for service is more service. Maybe you notice that. Maybe you notice that as we embrace the lifeline and we engage in service, there's a quote I've heard attributed to Confucius: opportunities are multiplied as they are seized. So that's so true in bhakti. As we seize an opportunity, then just like, then the next day, the next week, then we get ideas and realizations of how to expand that service 10 times and 20 times. And that requires a greater surrender and greater sincerity and growth and expertise in communication, expertise in prayer. In the fifth canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Rishabhadev, he's speaking to his many sons, headed by Bharat Maharaj, headed by Bharat. And actually, yes, and so this planet was formerly known as Bharatvarsh, like that. And so Rishabhadev says, Nayam Neho Deham Deham Nayam Neho Deham Bajam Nui Loke Kastan Kamam Arhati Vidbujami Tapu Divyam Puchakena Sattvam Shudyad Yasman Brahma Tvanantam Vanam Sokyam Tvanantam. So he says that in human life, not to be satisfied with the quality of pleasure that's available, vidbujamye, which translates as the stool eaters, pigs or dogs, right? Like, okay, like to not be satisfied with the quality of so-called happiness that comes from simply skin rubbing together, the contact of the senses with the sense objects. Again, if sense gratification naturally comes in the course of devotional service, okay, then the devotee might accept it, but that's not the goal of life. So he says that human life is especially meant for tapo divyam. It's that word tapa. That's the word that Brahma heard. Ta, pa, in his meditation. Tapo divyam. Divyam means divine. We can see like English words like divine, or even my name, David. Divine in the Hebrew also means like it gets to the, yes. So so the demigods, they're the devas. So divine austerity. Because here's the thing, everyone's doing austerity. It's unavoidable as a spiritual being having a human experience. Other species don't do austerities. Other species, like feeling hungry, time to eat, feeling like having sex, and there's an opportunity. That's it. time to sleep. So it's not just like, I think I'll fast for Ekadashi. And you won't find that in the dogs, cats, or squirrels. Or I think I'll take a vow of celibacy for the next 5 years. It's not going to be there. I think I'll get up early, even though I'm only on less sleep than my body will. I'll get up early for Mongol Arati. We're not going to find that in other species. But for humans, austerity means giving up some immediate gratification for some longer term enduring fulfillment and pleasure and like that. And so everyone's doing it, right? It's like, yeah, I'm going to not just party every night. I'm going to hit the books. I'm going to get that degree. I'm going to get that doctorate. I'm going to get that PhD. And then I'll be more fulfilled because I'll have a higher salary. I'm going to not just eat anything and everything today. I'm going to be austere in my eating. I'll feel better tomorrow, and I'll feel better and more fit. And as the saying goes, actually, I got this saying from Harv Eker. He invited me to conduct some workshops as part of his seminars back in 2007, 2010. And this is where I heard the saying from: if we're only willing to do what's easy, life will be hard. If we're very ready to do what's hard, life will be easy. And so again, so like it's easy to just like whatever and do whatever health or fitness habits that whatever I feel like to live for the moment, which is different than living in the moment. Living in the moment is presence. Living for the moment can be just reckless, not purposeful. Okay, then that's easy, and then life is hard because then I'm going to suffer from diseases, and I'm slower, and we're willing to do what's hard. Okay, let me be fit, austere, disciplined. Then life is easier. I'm healthy and happier, and like that. So we can apply that to anything. So we shop today saying, like, look, humans are going to do austerity. You do some job you don't like to get the money. And humans are going to do austerity. So he's recommending do divine austerity. That austerity that will bring fulfillment, not just 24 hours later or even 25 years later. I mean, that's nice too. That's like sattvic. But to do austerity, that's going to give Shuged Yasmad Brahma Sakyam Tvanantam. Ever increasing spiritual bliss that comes from giving up our material ego and serving God with love and devotion. And so Srila Prabhupada, he's given us a program, a relatively simple program by which we can mold our lives and neha bikrimunasha stay pachavayuna vijite svapamapyasya dharmasya traitema tobayat. It's not all or nothing. At the same time, sure, these great realized enlightened souls, they're encouraging us, give 100%, give 100% to this process. No force. And to what, I can say, looking back over more than 45 years ago is when I first took prasad. So my first service, in a sense. And then a little after that, 1983, you can say that was in this lifetime my beginning of my career in bhakti yoga. It's when I started chanting some japa. Because like when I was taking prasad, my consciousness wasn't, I'm doing this for self-realization. It wasn't. Okay. But it was still service. That's called a gyata sukriti. It's kind of, Srila Prabhupada said, prasadam's our secret weapon. So it's definitely true in my history. But like when I started chanting japa, I got like, oh yeah, spiritual God, self-realization. Okay. So it's like conscious. All right. Yeah. It's like, and I can say to whatever extent I've given myself to the process, it's directly positively correlated with my happiness, my connection, my joy, my security, my confidence, all of those contract qualities that are intrinsic to the diamond soul. And I'm praying for the mercy I get more intelligence to surrender to the process more sincerely in the next year than the past year and 45 years. So I could say, yeah, I could say that without fail, the process of Krishna consciousness and the austerities involved in it given to us by Srila Prabhupada, they work 100%. And what I'm not saying, because I've been unwaveringly blissful for the past 45 years. I'm not saying that. I am saying whenever like right now, I'm giving myself to the process, speaking on Bhagavatam, with associating with like sincere, spiritually intelligent people. So I'm feeling uplifted, fulfilled. It always works. And I've experienced lots of misery and suffering and embarrassment and shame and all sorts of toxic stuff for the past 45 years and 45 days and 45 hours, all of it. And that's not my experience of Krishna consciousness. That's my experience of myself when I'm choosing something other than bhakti yoga. So this text is Canto 3, Chapter 8, Text 22. It's Maitreya speaking to Sri Vidura. Kalena soja pusha yushabi pravrita yogena viruda bodha svayam tarantaridayeva batam apashitapa shitayadna purvam. At the end of Brahma's 100 years, when his meditation was complete, he developed the required knowledge, and as a result, he could see in his heart the Supreme within himself, whom he could not see before with the greatest endeavor. Hare Krishna, thanks for giving your power of hearing to Srimad Bhagavatam, and I welcome it this time. Any comments, questions, realizations, inspirations anyone would like to share? Dharma Bhavana, Prabhu.
Oh, Hare Krishna. Yeah, I was appreciating that this sadhu sangha, this association of devotees by coming to the program here is a really significant and powerful thing. And we mentioned earlier on in the discussion how this process of revelation is something that comes in the heart.
Yeah.
It's not something that a regular material person can understand. And naturally, as a devotee, we see and experience things that are become revealed to us over periods of time. And that's kind of beautiful how it works. We have one friend here who his mother is chanting 16 rounds and he's chanting 4 rounds a day. But he has a little difficult time understanding some of the elements of, should we say, science. Like I was explaining to him that in each universe there's one sun, but he's very addicted to following the process of the material scientists, that everything began with a big bang, all these different stars or suns. And I was just telling him that to understand the universe is not the most important thing, but it's part of the way the Bhagavatam helps us to kind of see the world. So if we, Krishna consciousness involves like psychology, sociology, cosmology, and all those things together. And if we allow ourselves to become open to all the different total processes in Krishna consciousness, it really will help us instead of being stuck on some material platform.
Thanks for sharing, Dharma Bhavana, Prabhu. I'm moved and inspired and intrigued by what you express, including about, just not taking for granted the beauty and the spiritual power of this devotional association right here, about a dozen of us between in person and online. Thanks for sharing that. Your words touch my heart. And you said you have a friend there who's beginning to chant Hare Krishna, and he has maybe some resistance, like to the Bhagavatam description of creation. I relate to your friend very, very much. I know, and actually, in some recent days, we've given some attention to that, to these topics. Myself, back in 83, 84, when I first started chanting japa, I moved into a bhakti yoga ashram outside of Tel Aviv, Israel in 1984. And I started, when I would read things about like the Vedic cosmology, I would have doubts because I had a lot of investment and attachment to, let's call it the Western paradigm of astronomy and astrophysics and things like that. And it was tormenting doubts in some regards. I'll mention, because I think you have a copy of my booklet that I published last year called Srila Prabhupada is Shastra, Perspectives on the Infallibility of Srila Prabhupada.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the beginning, there's I have a chapter there called Insights from Iowa, and I discuss about my process around that. And anyway, just yesterday was 1 or 2 days ago, and just in case this is helpful, and I appreciate where you shared with your friend or who's like beginning to chant, has some doubts around that, to to understand the details of universal creation is certainly not the most important thing. We study creation to enhance our bhakti, our dedication to serve. But okay, let's just take something like the Big Bang. The idea is that there was a nothing and it exploded. And as a result of the nothing exploding, then there were Shakespeare's sonnets. Okay. So what you have there, even that approach, it would seem to go against the physical law of entropy. Entropy means a physical material system left to itself will go to more and more disorder. Let's say we have a big bang, a big bomb blow up in a city. The city becomes more beautiful, more organized. The buildings become, the structures of the buildings become more solid. No, that never happened. Now, in one sense, the Bhagavatam description of creation, in one sense, we can see it as like a big bang. At the same time, the key difference is the bang is energized and activated by highly subtly intelligent beings, Brahma, Garbhodaksha, Vishnu, Mahavishnu. And that actually, so that's the principle of things go from subtle to external, not things go from gross to subtle. Because we can see. So we can see the Bhagavatam description is like, yeah, there's the whole energy, there's a big bang activated, and it started with consciousness. And so for consciousness to move matter, and then that leads to higher levels of order, like Shakespeare's sonnets or artificial intelligence or a laptop computer. Okay, that actually makes sense. An example we gave yesterday, just like in our kitchens or our homes, if the kitchen's full of dishes and the laundry is not done, left to its own, will the kitchen become beautifully clean? No, it'll just pile up more and more dishes. It'll get more and more disordered and messy. Only when a conscious entity applies themselves, then the laundry gets done and the dishes get put away and dried. And so, we're just giving like one idea, not that we want to prematurely try to in any way force someone to accept this, but just whether it's Big Bang or Darwinian evolution or the idea of life comes from matter colliding in the primordial stoop. If we really apply ourselves logically and looking at facts, facts, matter comes together and create life. How many times has that ever been done or witnessed in a laboratory or in nature? Big zero. One species, obviously, yes, the amoebas became the tomato plant and they became somehow the monkeys, and then obviously. So how many times has in a laboratory or in nature anyone ever seen one species transform into another? Zero. Science means there's a hypothesis and there's an experiment that you can experience. So we never see an explosion leading to greater order. We never see matter coming together to create life. We see trillions of examples of life creating life. Life comes from life. We all come from parents who are living, and the seed comes from a tree from it that's living. Okay. So just like if someone applies themselves with intelligence and not satisfied to just, let's say, follow the herd of independent thinkers, the herd of independent thinkers, and if you have even a slight disagreement, then you're not in the club of independent minds. Okay. Then anyone should at least have some serious doubts about these theories. Um, oh, and yeah, I'll just pause there.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to think things out logically, as because we see nature working in a certain way, and even the Shastra helps us understand things through logic also.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate the conversation. I'll mention a resource that over the decades I give out sometimes. It's from I think 1984. It's Origins magazine, produced by Sadaputta and some of his team, and it presents about Big Bang and evolution of species and life coming from matter, presents it in very scientific terms, at the same time in terms that a lay person can understand. Sadhaput also has things that are very technical, statistical language. But I usually have like a few copies of that when conversations go there. And I found it's called Origins Magazine. Thank you, Dharma Bhavana Prabhu.
Okay.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Oh, Rosa had her hand up before. Rosa, do you want to go first?
Either way, Prabhu. All right. Hare Krishna. I have asked. Forgive my voice, by the way. It's not agreeing with my normal voice. Anyway, I have asked this before about the meaning of sincerity, and my mind does what it does until it's satisfied. It continues to come up. So I heard you use the word sincerity many times in the talk today, dear Govinda, and my mind said, "Hey, what's the definition of sincerity again?" And internal monologue, I'll admit, as much as I try to be present, well, it started to happen of, well, doesn't it depend on a person's motivation? And I got really excited because I had a realization today during today's talk that gets me a little bit closer to something that's satisfying. So, dear Govinda, when you were consuming massive quantities of prasad, you were definitely sincere to the extent of our realization. And you said something a moment ago that was, service leads to more service.
Yeah.
And, I believe this comes through realization. And then you said something that sounded a lot like a prayer, right? Like, I hope that with every given year, I'll have greater realization that deepens my service. And so I think my new definition of sincerity is to apply oneself enthusiastically to the extent of our realization. And it works, right? So we were talking about during one of these morning programs how even someone saying the holy names by accident, right? What was it? Someone said like the Ram truck, right? Well, they're technically saying Rama. But we're served prasad before we understand maybe what it is, and even if it's by accident, we're given grace. And so that's another part of it too. Is sometimes we act before we feel, but we're given grace and mercy, Hare Krishna.
Thanks for sharing your realizations, Bhakti and Rosa. I appreciate your contribution. Hare Krishna. Anandini.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. I noted down many points. It's very enlivening. What I'm becoming more and more aware is how important knowledge is. Knowledge in the sense of how it's described in Bhagavad Gita as humility and non-violence and compassion, but also knowledge about facts, like facts. I'm not the body, or how the universe got created, Lord Brahma, and how that helps me take wiser decisions in life.
Yeah.
That I don't get more and more entangled, but more and more liberated. And I was listening to Yogeshwar's class this morning. I was at their morning program, and we read Bhagavad Gita 252, I think it was, and it's when the intelligence comes out of the dense forest of illusion.
The dense forest of delusion.
Illusion.
The dense forest of,
yes, you will become indifferent to everything you ever heard or you will hear. And Yogeshwar, he used the example of Harry Potter's Quidditch game. There's this game in Harry Potter, and apparently you can make points, but these points are not so important. The most important thing is at one point this golden snitch flies off, and then whoever catches it wins the game. And he was using that as an analogy to say, well, there's so much information in life and we can get very confused, but the important thing is to look out for this golden snitch, and that's the devotional service, to look out for that, and then that's what helps us win the game. And I thought it was very an inspiring example for me to know what knowledge am I looking for. What is the knowledge? Not the knowledge that brings me closer to God, to Krishna, to love, to understanding, and also to freedom.
Yeah, freedom from material entanglement and material miseries. Well, first of all, I'm really glad to hear that Yogeshwar Prabhu and yourselves, you're doing morning program together. The Czechia Yatra and the Wheeler Yatra. That's wonderful for me to hear. And yeah, the knowledge, not just to collect knowledge in a spirit of jnani, but knowledge to help us make distinctions. That's intelligence, to sharpen our intelligence. So whether it's in relationships, career, relationship with money, relationship with how we use our time, relationship with our relation with diet and food and health, and relationship with what's happening in the world, that we get more and more, our intelligence is sharper and sharper through divya gyan, through transcendental knowledge, including the facts that go with that, to make distinctions, to support us to go towards bhakti, to deepen our enthusiasm to serve Krishna and to get out of material miseries. And so thanks for your realizations about knowledge is important.
And one thing that came to my mind was you were speaking about the Big Bang, and to at least doubt the explanation of the Big Bang. I listened to a class, and at the end of the class, someone in the audience asked Srila Prabhupada about animals being in the different gunas, and Srila Prabhupada responded, and he said, yes, a lion is in Rajagun, a cow is in Sattvagun, and a monkey is in Tamogun, and Darwin's dad was a monkey. And he just said it with such dry humor, and like giving really like serious knowledge. And Darwin's father was a monkey. And then some in the audience laughed, and then he addressed someone by name and said, right? And then this person said, yeah, so he claims, and that's how Srila Prabhupada ended. Yes, Darwin's dad, father, was a monkey.
Yeah. Srila Prabhupada using transcendental humor to inspire us in knowledge, because in a sense, okay, Darwin saying that his ancestors were monkeys. Okay, we'll accept that his. But yeah, it's great stuff from Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, we want to be able to in ourselves to understand and to explain any aspect of Krishna consciousness based on our experience, be able to communicate it so others get experience, based on logic, any aspect, logic, experience, and based on Shastra. And sometimes we'll focus on sharing logic. Sometimes, well, here's my experience. I chant and I'm happy. When the first child born into the movement, she was named Saraswati, daughter of Malati and Shamasundar. And she would just, she would go to people. Of course, she's like a 2-year-old toddler, so no one could resist. She would just go to people and be like, chant and be happy. And Prabhupada says, that's preaching. She has that experience and she's sharing it. That's preaching. And then, of course, they would chant and become happy. How could they refuse a 2-year-old toddler, And so, so experience, logic, and Shastra. And when I, not just, some people really, they respect the Vedas, so be able to quote Shastra. Yeah. And what I found, including in seminars, is that people who have no previous connection with Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, or Vedas, when in an appropriate way, using proper discretion, not the roadblock of preaching or like that, when I'm referencing Shastra in a direct way, it enhances and strengthens the perception of credibility and that this is authorized. It's not just something that started in the 1960s. So all three, we want to cultivate expertise to realize and communicate effectively any aspect of the principles and philosophy and practice of Krishna consciousness based on experience, Shastra, and logic. Thank you, Anandini. Anything else? Any other questions or comments? Stefan, I'm glad to see you. Glad you're attending and present here for our spiritual program. I appreciate your presence.
Yeah, nice to see you again. Thank you for that I can be with you. And for me is the question, how can I less connect to the material? I mean, so at work, so a lot of get involved with material and other people who also involved with materials, and so I don't know how sometimes so faller. Yeah. So how can I not trap in a trap in or
fall in a trap?
Fall in a trap.
Thanks for sharing, Stefan. That you're asking how to be less influenced by material influences and material energy. which is all around the place and pretty much the whole world. And you're saying specifically like about your work environment, where it's just like it can seem like really material, mundane, non-godly, non-sattvic work and association. I appreciate your question. I mean, a synonym for material is like Maya, means the force, the power of illusion. Maya is a person. And just like Nandini was sharing, old essential knowledge, like if I'm thinking I'm David Wolf, I'm 64 years old, 65 soon, but 64 right now, and I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So that's illusion. That's Maya. That's a material consciousness. Then I'll act, based on I'll be happy when these senses are satisfied. That's like a fundamental illusion. Srila Prabhupada said that his greatest anxiety is that his students are not scared enough of Maya. And so, I'm seeing your question as like very humble and healthy, not just like not thinking, oh, I'm not susceptible to I'm not susceptible to material energy, to like there's grungy toxic fear, and there's healthy fear. And let that fear of slipping and sliding down and just getting overwhelmed by the tidal wave of material energy, let me be scared of that. Let that move me to prepare myself. And then, as far as how to prepare ourselves, kind of my response to that is like everything, meaning like everything connected with the process of spiritual life supports you, me, and all of us to be prepared to be a touchstone for transformation. That's a term we use a lot. We can think in terms of the principle of osmosis. Osmosis. So osmosis is always going to happen, whether I go to the post office or go to the office for work, or I'm in association like this, meaning like we're always going to be giving and receiving consciousness. And so if I go into an atmosphere where it's apparently the consciousness is maybe rajasic, tamasic, and if I'm not strong in my sattvic and devotional, transcendental consciousness, then the osmosis will come to me and I'll get covered over. And it's not their fault, it's because I was susceptible and weak. My sincerity for devotional service was less than fully sincere. And to the extent that I'm strong, and a great way to become strong is just like I'm fully confident, just like a conversation like this, this Bhagavatam class and discussion, this is helping you. It's helping me. It's helping all of us to go into our day. For you, it's already afternoon. For us, it's 9:20 in the morning. This hour, 2 hours together, focus on God's words, process of serving God. This is helping us wherever we go for the rest of the day, so that we give spiritual consciousness, so that not artificial, but like whatever your work environment, I trust you have you have the potency, Stefan, to go there and transform it into an inspiring, God-centered spiritual environment. You have the potency for that. I'm not saying it's easy, but like, okay, like for example, some of my attempts, this is going back more than 30 years, when I went into some university studies for graduate degrees. And the university tends to be mundane knowledge that really takes one further away from childlike, soft-hearted devotion to God. University can be quite mundane, like they're really like one of the main institutions bringing society down. At the same time, going to the university classes and writing my papers, and endeavoring chant Hare Krishna before that. And so like I endeavored to bring some Krishna consciousness to that institution, whether it was in the papers I wrote, And my PhD dissertation was on chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, how it relieves stress and depression. And then the professors and the students, they were so enlivened because they were getting real knowledge. I'm just giving that as an example. Our whole Sattva, like it is said about modern psychology, that first modern psychology lost its soul, then it lost its conscience, then it lost its mind altogether. If we look at, like, when we go into the behavioral approaches, the idea, oh, there's no mind, what to speak of soul, conscience, consciousness. So the whole approach of Sattva, we're going into fields. Just 8 days ago in Orlando, Florida, I conducted a transformative communication workshop with bankers and medical professionals, and so we're endeavoring to bring true spirituality, self-realization, understanding of the absolute into fields like communication training, leadership training, and transformation, psychology, social work, coaching, like that. These fields that are pretty much heavy in materialistic consciousness. Now, again, I'm not saying it's easy, and in order to effectively be a stand for transformation, we need to be filling ourselves up each day, and that's where a strong morning program that's really potent. Generally, for a typical day, I'm giving 4 or 5, 6 hours in the morning to fill myself up, so that whatever email I write, whatever project I do, with whoever I coach, wherever I go, with a strong morning program, then I'm purposeful, and then I'm a touchstone for transformation. And when I'm weak in my habits and surfing the internet, material ways, things that are not service connected, when I'm weak in my habits, weak in my chanting, then I'm susceptible to get influenced by the material energy. So those are some principles in case they're helpful.
Okay, that means so be very good prepared for the day. So it's a good morning program.
Yeah, I feel understood. Yeah, in any legitimate, genuine spiritual tradition, whether from the Bhagavad Gita, Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, any genuine spiritual tradition, the serious practitioners, they're rising early, because those pre-dawn hours, right around dawn, pre-dawn, it's just like that's when there's most sattva, there's free transcendental nectar in the air. And I know myself, I was always a night person, stay up late, wake up late, like that. And I still have that tendency. But now I'm like, more and more each year of my life, like, I don't want to miss those pre-dawn hours, because like that's the bliss, that's life. So any sincere spiritual practitioner, any tradition that's bona fide, not nonsense, they're highly recommending take full advantage of those pre-dawn hours before the passionate day gets going. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you, Stefan. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Thanks for your association.